Three's the Charm by MissCHSparkles, Chapter 29. I'm sorry if you can hear something in the background. There's a nest of jackdaws outside my window and their chicks have recently hatched. I can constantly hear them. Anyway, here we go. Somehow Sirius had convinced Remus to remain in Diagon Alley and have lunch with the rest of the Weasleys once they turned up. There were at least an hour until that, so Sirius suggested that they go around some shops together. Since neither Harry nor indeed Ron, when he appeared, seemed to be afraid of him, Remus agreed. "So, you were friends of my dad's?" Harry asked, as they strolled along down the still busy street. "Yes, I was," Remus acknowledged with a small smile. "I also counted your mother as a good friend. She was always very kind." "I've heard," Harry said with a small smile. We weren't so close in our early years at Hogwarts," Remus mused as they headed in the direction of the Quidditch shop. "We had our own groups of friends, and I believe we came off as rather immature." "Yeah, she preferred the more serious types when it came to boys," Sirius said fondly, thinking of all the times they had been told off by the redhead. "Like Snape?" Ron asked, and Remus blinked in astonishment. Yes, indeed," he stammered. "They were very close in Lily's early years, but there was a disagreement at the end of their 5th year, which regrettably destroyed their friendship." Harry wondered if any of the Marauders had actually thought it was regrettable at the time. Possibly Remus had felt guilty, but somehow he doubted the others would. Funnily enough, he wondered who had been the most delighted. His dad had wanted to go out with his mum, but Sirius and Snape had always had that grudge against each other, ever since the Willow incident. And then there was Wormtail, who had, in the memory, Harry had seen when had almost wet himself with delight over Snape's torment. He must have relished the breakdown of Snape and Harry's mum's relationship. "What was the disagreement?" he asked, curious as to what answer he had been given. "It's complicated," Remus said simply. "I'm not sure if your professor would appreciate us talking about it." "Probably not," Sirius agreed, before saying briskly, "So, Ron, what's your favourite Quidditch team?" "The Chudley Cannons," Ron declared proudly. Sirius grinned. He knew all about Chudley Cannons fans. It was best not to ask when they had won a game. It was best not to ask when the last time they had won a game was. "Ah, the Chudley Cannons," he mused. "They're an old team. Any new ones that cropped up recently?" "Not in Britain," Ron said knowledgeably. "I think there was a new one in America a few years ago. Can't remember the name, though." "I'll need to buy the latest magazine. Catch up on it all," Sirius said jovially. Ron started to reply, but Harry didn't hear it. He just noticed a small group of people whispering as they watched them. "I can't believe that Harry Potter is with a criminal." "Oh, but wasn't he proven innocent?" "Well, yes, but still." Harry frowned. He'd almost forgotten the gossipy nature of the wizarding world. People like Rita Skeeter thrived by simply writing speculation and conjecture, and the public just lapped it all up. He supposed Muggle newspapers did something very similar, but they did at least appear to be more accountable for it. Or, at least, if the press was too outrageous, most politicians and celebrities seemed to be able to sue them for libel. He wished it wasn't so easy for Rita to write blatant lies as fact, and, moreover, for them to be utterly believed. Remembering the first stupid article she had written about him, he still felt a flash of anger about it. This time she was not going to be allowed to do that. "Harry?" The voice that broke him out of his revelry and looked up at his godfather. "What?" he asked. "You all right?" Sirius asked with concern, glancing in the direction of some of the passers-by. "Yeah, sorry," Harry apologized. "It's nothing." "You sure?" his godfather asked, frowning a little. "Yeah, it's fine," Harry told him firmly. He didn't want to ruin Sirius's day out. "Okay," Sirius said with a nod. He didn't look completely convinced, but had no wish to make an issue of it. "Tell me, Harry," Remus suddenly said, "what is Severus like as a teacher?" Harry said a little uncertainly. How to describe his potions teacher? "He favours the Slytherins." "Big surprise," muttered Sirius. "Anything else?" Remus asked with a smile. "It really pays to study potions," Harry finally managed to say after running through 100 different things he could say about his professor. There were a lot of things he could say, but the vast majority of that happened in his previous life. This time around, things were, or at least appeared, to be different. It's not that he doesn't teach us, but he doesn't tolerate mistakes very well. Yeah, he really gets on you, Ron added. There's a boy called Neville in our year. He's terrified of Snape, and keeps making mistakes, so Snape keeps looming over him. Then he calls him names or insults him. That sounds just like him, Sirius stated grimly, always ready with a not-so-subtle insult. Oh, I don't know, Remus said mildly. I seem to remember a few occasions where you and James would suddenly realise you had been insulted by him, sometimes after the event. And I remember you never bothered to tell us, Sirius retorted, a grin gracing his lips. Why make the situation worse? His friend said simply. Besides, the expression on your faces when realization dawned was always amusing. Sirius just grinned, and the friendly banter continued. They spent a decent amount of time in the Quidditch shop, where Ron bought some beater's gloves for the twins, and with Harry, bought some classic Holyhead Harpies figurines for Ginny. Harry bought some gloves for Ron when he wasn't looking, and knew Sirius had bought a few things, but naturally they were surprises. Remus didn't buy anything, but he seemed quite happy to just being with his old friend again. Harry did wonder what they had been talking about, but whatever it was, it had cleared the air between them. Hopefully Sirius could arrange for some of that wolfsbane potion for his friend. It would dramatically improve his quality of life. And if Mrs. Weasley took a liking to him, then he would soon find himself stuffed on a regular basis. Went pretty well yesterday, Ron remarked, sprawled on his bed with a comic while Harry was wrapping a present for Hermione. Mum likes Lupin. She probably thinks Sirius needs to get out with friends sometimes. His own age and all that. She's probably right, Harry mused. It'll be good for him to get out. Maybe he'll get a job or something. Wonder what he could do, Ron said thoughtfully. Did he get good grades in Hogwarts? Yeah, he found it pretty easy, Harry confirmed. I'm not really sure what he did after school, apart from fighting for the Order. His friend just made a noise of agreement. Harry continued on with his wrapping for a few minutes. He got on Hermione some expensive writing materials, which included fine goose quills, different colours of good quality ink, some decent parchment, a leather-bound notebook, and a quill knife. Even the best quills could become blunt, so it always paid to have a quill knife in stock. Sometimes he really did miss Muggle pens and pencils. It was incredibly easy to smudge up your parchment with quills, and it took skill and concentration to avoid loads of ink splotches. But that's how things were done in the wizarding world. Traditions ran strong. Ron's gift for Hermione was a little more personal, but he hadn't wrapped it yet. Come on, he muttered, attempting to use a spell to neatly tie the ribbon, but instead the blue material just flopped limply. How difficult can this be? I dunno. You're making it look hard, Ron told him seriously. Harry rolled his eyes before jabbing his wand out the ribbon, attempting to throttle his present. Ah! He said in frustration, ignoring Ron laughing as he waved his wand again to stop it being wrecked. A more careful wave saw the present wrapped with a ribbon, and not looking half bad. He could have wrapped it normally, but he felt like having a go with magic. With satisfaction, he put it aside before turning to Ron. I think we should tell Creature. Ron looked to him, but did not look overly shocked, just mildly surprised. But this was probably more due to the fact that Harry had pretty much said this out of the blue. What, that we came back in time? His friend questioned, and Harry nodded. Yeah, he said, to destroy that Horcrux. We need him on our side. And we saw what he could do with the right motivation. Look how he transformed Grimmauld Place. Ron nodded his agreement. They'd sort of discussed this before, but not for several weeks, as there had been a lot of other things occupying their attention. Telling anyone was a risk, but he had to admit Harry had a good point. Their time hiding out at Sirius's house had definitely been the best part out of the whole hunt. So, how are we going to do that? He questioned. I mean, I don't suppose Sirius is in a rush to go back to the place. That's true, Harry said slowly, but there's also a lot of his stuff there, including photos and letters from my parents. He's not going to want those things lost or chucked out. Especially if you want them, Ron reminded him with a grin. Yeah, he said with a smile. That locket is in the house. We need to get hold of it before it's thrown away. Creature might have saved it last time, but we can't rely on that. Ron slowly nodded. Even though that locket was probably one of the more precious items in the house to the house elf, there was always the danger that it could be thrown away or stolen. That could not be allowed to happen. They could not risk someone getting a hold of that locket and becoming possessed by Voldemort. A Horcrux brought to life in a physical body was one nightmare they did not want to have to face. You know Sirius wouldn't want to leave you alone with Creature, right? Ron suddenly stated. He hates him. I don't know. I don't really think he'd see Creature as a threat, Harry replied pensively. He didn't the first time. Yeah, but you're only 11, Ron pointed out with a shrug. He might not be so keen on you alone in any room. You didn't see the place when we first went in. It was a mess. It was literally uninhabitable. Trust me, you weren't missing anything. Harry murmured. He could see Ron's point. It would have been a lot of hard work putting the place back together, but it still would have been all right because he would have been with his friends, and not spending a whole month worrying over what Voldemort was doing. But there was no point in arguing about it. If Ron had been able to, he would have brought Harry over a lot sooner, but it wasn't his decision. Harry wondered when Dumbledore would have brought him over, if not for the Dementor attack. I'll ask after Christmas, he stated after a few minutes. No point ruining things for him. Good plan, Ron agreed, turning back to his comic. We'll do that then. Harry grinned before flopping back onto his bed. Now all he had to do was worry about the twins blowing something up. Hey, wake up! Harry opened his eyes to find a blur of red and freckles hovering over him. Putting his glasses on revealed that the blur was indeed his best friend Ron. He smirked and shoved him away, pushing the hair out of his eyes. They soon fell on a stuffed stocking near the end of his bed, making him smile. He could just make out an orange peeking out from the hand-knitted stocking. Looks like you've already got a present, Ron declared thickly, already chewing on his own orange, its skin peeled back until the white was showing. Harry grinned as he saw what Ron meant. A carefully wrapped present lying innocently at the end of his bed, and he nudged it with his foot. Found there was nothing solid inside it. He reached forward, grabbed it, and pulled out the extremely squishy parcel over and tearing it open. Excellent, he said with satisfaction, as some silvery material spilled out. I felt naked without this. Ron laughed at that, digging a hand into his own stocking and yanking out a bright orange-coloured Quidditch figurine. Awesome! He grinned. I've always wanted this one. Harry just stroked the halo that had been handed down through the various generations of his family. It was his most precious possession next to his wand, and he was very thankful Dumbledore had sent it to him. There was suddenly a loud bang from downstairs, startling both boys, which was quickly followed by several shrieks. Fred and George are awake, Ron said wryly, turning back to his stocking. Ah, Harry said in understanding, now twisting to grab his stocking and starting going through its contents. Apart from an orange, there was a English Quidditch figurine, a safe bet since Harry didn't have a Quidditch team yet, a couple of indoor fireworks, a large packet of Bertie Bott's every flavour beans, a box of exploding snap, a pair of vividly coloured socks that flashed, and a comb. Harry smirked at the last item. He had a feeling this was a joke at his expense. He was pretty sure the only way his hair would ever lie flat was if he used the stuff Hermione had put in to unfizzle it. Come on, Ron called, all of his stocking presents strewn over his bed. The presents are downstairs at the tree. Coming, Harry said, stuffing his cloak under his covers and charging downstairs with his best friend. Hurry! His godfather exclaimed, wearing only pyjama bottoms and revealing a torso that was much more filled out than it had been before. Sirius! Harry cried, allowing himself to be swept up by his godfather and swung around. Ready to open a few presents? The older man said teasingly. You bet! Harry grinned back, seeing a massive pile around the merrily decorated Christmas tree. One at a time, one at a time, Mrs. Weasley was calling, trying to prevent a scrum under the tree. Your father will hand everyone a gift, and we will open them in an orderly fashion. Ah, where's the fun in that? Fred complained, already halfway through ripping open a parcel. Now, boys, Mr. Weasley said firmly, I know we're excited, but remember we have a guest. Harry and Sirius won't be able to reach their presents. I agree, Percy stated. You would. George said with a roll of his eyes. Why don't we look at it this way? Sirius suggested, leading Harry over to the tree. This way we'll know who got what from who. Guess that is a good point, admitted Fred, grabbing a couple of other presents and taking them over to the sofa with his twin. That's better, Mrs. Weasley said, tightening her dressing gown. Here you are, Harry dear. A little something from Arthur and I. Thanks, Mrs. Weasley, Harry said, taking a familiar-looking package and opening it to reveal a Weasley jumper, complete with a capital H. It's great, he said warmly, nostalgia flooding back to him. Thanks. Oh, it was nothing, Harry dear, she said, beaming as the others opened their gift. Here's one for you, Sirius. Thanks, Sirius said, a knowing smile on his face as he opened up a black jacket with a silver S on it. He pulled it on and admired it. The jumper fit perfectly and felt warm. It was homemade and simple, and 100 times better, and 100 times more precious than anything his actual parents had ever given him. Now you're a real member of the family, Arthur murmured as he leant over. Sirius looked at him and smiled. What followed was a whirlwind of unwrapping and explanations of thanks. Ginny almost cried when she opened her Holyhead Harpies figures, while the twins whooped over their hamper of joke items. Ron's mum kissed his dad after she was given a beautiful new set of dress robes. They were a lovely shade of light blue. Harry received a top-of-the-range broomstick care kit from Sirius, as well as one large bag of sweets and a book on jinxes and hexes. His godfather had learned Harry's favourite subject was defence, even though he only had a substitute for a teacher at the moment. In return, Harry had gotten him a t-shirt that said, "It takes a real man to fly a motorbike," and some hair care products. This made Sirius roar with laughter and grab his godson in a bear hug, promising to use both faithfully. Loads more presents followed, until Mrs. Weasley chivied them back upstairs to get dressed so they could have breakfast and then go outside. Once breakfast was over, they all went outside and started sledging and having snowball fights, while the Weasley matriarch took care of Christmas dinner. The snow fell thickly, giving the surrounded area an incredibly festive look to it. As the two adults, Mr. Weasley and Sirius, became heads of two teams for the snowball fight, with Sirius taking Ginny, Harry and Ron, while Mr. Weasley had the twins and Percy. Fred and George were extremely enthusiastic, while Percy spent a lot of time ducking. Sirius slyly kept blasting any snowballs that threatened to hit Ginny, causing the other side to yell, "Cheat! Nonsense! She's just that good!" Sirius roared back, laughing his head off. "Come on! Some of us are getting bored!" This caused the twins to declare all-out war and charge the enemy team, which resulted in everyone rolling around in the snow with no idea who is who. "Boys, boys!" gasped Mr. Weasley, leaning heavily against a tree. "I think a time-out is in order. I'm a little breathless." "But we're just getting started," Fred called, throwing a huge pile of snow at Percy, who slipped and fell into a snowdrift. "Can we go ice skating?" Ginny asked eagerly. "I want to go ice skating." "I'm going inside," Percy spluttered, spitting out snow and looking rather odd with his glasses completely white. "I think I will as well," Mr. Weasley agreed. He was bright red with cold and exertion. "Don't stay out too long, boys. Ginny, are you warm enough?" "I'm fine, Dad," she assured him. She didn't want to miss another single minute of fun. "I'll look after her," promised Sirius. "Thank you," the older man said gratefully. "Have fun, everyone." It was almost an hour later before Sirius called a halt. They had skated so much that Harry felt like his feet might fall off. Ginny was staggering with tiredness, but nonetheless beaming widely. "Let's go in," Sirius commanded, supporting the youngest Weasley so she didn't fall over. "That was great," panted Ron, his hair dripping everywhere. "Yeah," Harry said with a nod, also panting for breath. This had to be one of the best Christmases ever. Mrs. Weasley was waiting for them with her wand. "Boots at the door," she ordered, "and coats off." They did as they were told, and she cast drying spells over them. "I want everyone to go upstairs and get changed, and then you can get some hot chocolate. Oh, Sirius, there's a little surprise in the living room." "Surprise?" he said curiously. "Yes, dear, just go on through," she said with a smile, checking over Ginny, who was squirming. Sirius said thoughtfully. He really didn't know what it could be. Harry followed him, also curious as to what it could be. He heard his godfather gasp and turned the corner to find Remus sitting with a steaming cup of hot chocolate. The other man smiled and said, "Merry Christmas, Sirius." "You're here!" Sirius half yelped, rushing over and clasping his friend in a hug. The hot chocolate, thankfully, moved to a side table just in time. "Yes, Molly and Arthur invited me round for Christmas dinner," he explained hoarsely, returning the hug with vigour. "Hello, Harry." "Hi, Remus," Harry said, a huge grin on his face. "What's happening?" came Ron's voice as he poked his head around the corner. "Blimey!" "Oh, hello, Ron," Remus added as he was finally released. "Did your mother mention I was coming over to dinner?" "Another mince pie?" Mrs. Weasley offered some time later. "Oh, I couldn't eat another thing," Remus protested, holding up his hands in surrender. "But it was very delicious. Thank you." "It was no problem," she said before offering the plate to her husband, who also had to say no. Mrs. Weasley's Christmas dinner could easily rival that of Hogwarts, with its huge turkey stuffed to the brim, the roast potatoes, sprouts, carrots, parsnips and other assorted vegetables, Yorkshire puddings, cranberry sauce, pigs in blankets, gravy. The list went on. Once it was over, a massive Christmas pudding was brought out, along with mince pies, truffle and chocolate Yule logs with different Christmas sweets piled high on a plate. As they'd eaten, they'd pulled crackers apart with loud bangs and placed their hats proudly on their heads. The cat slunk through the table legs, eagerly snapping up any treats offered to it. "It was wonderful, Molly dear," her husband assured her. "One of your best yet." She agreed. "If Ben and Charlie could have been here, it would have been perfect." "They'll get over soon, I'm sure," he said soothingly. "If not, we could plan for a holiday to see each of them. I'm sure we'd all enjoy Egypt."
"Oh, what about seeing the dragons?"
George said eagerly. "Oh, I don't know about that," his mother said. "They're far too dangerous." Harry and Ron shared a grin. "Could I be excused for the moment?" Remus asked politely, getting to his feet with a slight groan. He really did look stuffed. "It's just the second door on the right, just down the hall," Mrs. Weasley instructed. "Thank you," he said, leaving the kitchen. "Harry," Sirius said, turning to his godson, "I've got something else for you." "Oh?" Harry said curiously, as his godfather summoned a small package. "I almost forgot to give it to you," Sirius explained, handing it to him with a smile.
"A camera!"
Harry exclaimed once he'd opened it. "I want you to take lots of pictures when you go back to Hogwarts," Sirius instructed. "I want to see how your first year at Hogwarts goes."
"Okay," Harry said with a grin. "I'll try and take some good ones."
"Good, bad, it doesn't matter," his godfather said. "Just use your imagination and see what comes out." He laughed before deciding this was a good opening.
"Serious? What happened to the photos you used to have?"
"Not sure," the older man mused, swiping some chocolate sauce from his bowl and raising it to his lips. "I don't suppose my mother got it."
"Your mother?"
Harry queried, already knowing the answer. "She's dead," Sirius said casually. "I think she died just about 5 years ago, and my father just before that. We didn't get on, and who knows if she destroyed everything of mine in that wretched old house of theirs. Or that creepy house elf who got rid of it."
"Oh, you have a house elf?"
Mrs. Weasley questioned. "I guess I do, if he hasn't keeled over," Sirius said wistfully. "I'm the only heir to the ancient and most noble house of Black." His voice drooped with sarcasm as he said that.
"Does that make us the noble and most ancient house of Weasley?"
George asked, mock serious. "I'm not sure about noble," his father chuckled, "but ancient does sound about right." "You don't want to be their version of noble, believe me," Sirius said grimly. "The house was basically a shrine to Slytherin. All horrible green and dark arts all over the place."
"Sounds terrible," Ginny said seriously.
"It was," he said with a nod. "Still," Mrs. Weasley said slowly, "if it's your house, and it comes with a house elf, you should probably look it over." "Not throwing me out, are you, Molly?" Sirius teased. "Of course not," she exclaimed, patting him on the arm reassuringly. "You know you can stay for as long as you like. But I think it would be good for you to have a little project. Otherwise you'll go mad with boredom here. Perhaps your friend Remus could help. That young man could do with a safe, relaxing job." Well, it would be nice to do something with Remus again, Sirius acknowledged slowly. Maybe I could do up one of the rooms for him.
Wonderful, Mrs. Weasley said happily. I could pack lunches for you. The poor dear needs feeding up.
Now that's something I can't disagree with.
Sirius laughed heartily as Remus re-entered the room.
Did I miss something? He asked pleasantly. Sirius was just telling us about his old house, Mr. Weasley explained. We were talking about the possibility of fixing it up. Really? Remus said, I'd be happy to help out with that.
We could help too, Harry said eagerly. We could go before the holidays end.
I think I'd rather you saw it in the summer, Sirius said. I doubt any of it's in a fit state. And I don't want you to spend your Christmas holidays cleaning. He gave Harry a smile and said, But if I find anything of your parents, I'll save it. And we can go through it together when you finish your first year. How does that sound?
That sounds good, Harry said quickly, plastering a smile on his face. Sirius ruffled his hair before turning back to Remus, who had sat down. What now? Ron hissed. Change of plan, Harry whispered back with a sigh. I think I've got an idea. End of chapter. Hi guys, hope you enjoyed this one. Oh, I love Christmas chapters. Honestly, it's May where I am right now, but I love me some December. Anyway, you guys know the drill. Like, comment and subscribe and hit that bell to get notified for whenever I upload a new video. Have a good day, night, or whatever time zone you're in. Bye my guys, gals and non-binary pals. I'll see you in another video. Take care.